Today we're going to be making one of my absolute favorite meals to have. I just love this so much. It's such a fun meal to have. It always feels like a treat if you kind of fancy a takeaway but you don't want to spend on it, or there's no good takeaways near you. This is the go-to meal. It's tacos. And I'm going to also show you not just about all the fillings that we can put in, but I'm going to show you how to make your own tacos as well.
I take the sweetness of the weather, keep the mood light as a feather, add the salt, add the pepper, mix my heart and soul together, cause it's better this way.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Brook 101, where I'm showing you some of the recipes we developed at the Brook restaurant over the past 7 years. All of the recipes I'm showing you are 100% plant-based, of course, absolutely bloomin' delicious, of course, and also super easy, because I want to show you how easily you can start to make more food like this at home and not just have a plant-based diet or increase your plant-based eating, but absolutely fall in love with it, because this food is just amazing when done right. Now, I think learning how to do something like making tacos is such a good idea, because honestly, they're really easy and they keep for a while. So you can make like a batch a week, you can make them into the small tacos, or you can make big tortillas, like so you can have wraps with them. And when you make these yourself, not only does it feel great because you're having like homemade food, but they taste so much better. And you're obviously cutting out that plastic. So there's just really no reason not to make them yourself. It's just all round amazing. Okay, so all we need to make our tacos is some bread flour. We've got 190 grams of bread flour here. We've got some olive oil, 45 ml, a teaspoon of baking powder. We're going to put some salt in, and we're going to add water, but we're going to add boiling water, which is a really good trick for just making the dough really like silky and smooth and really easy to work with. So you want to pop your kettle on to boil. I've already done mine. And we're just going to mix it all together. So first thing we want to do is pop in the bread flour and the baking powder and mix those together. And we want a really good dose of salt in these. You can obviously skip this or reduce it if you want to. It does change the flavour, but I guess really once you've loaded all the other bits onto your tacos, you might not be able to tell that much. Okay, and then into that is going to go our oil and water. Now, obviously, because the water is going to be boiling, we're not going to be able to work with it up with our hands immediately. So I've got a silicone stirrer here that I'm going to use to mix it as best I can, and then leave it for a couple of minutes until we can get our hands in there. Okay, so oil goes in. They want 140 ml of boiled water, so I'm going to pop it onto the scale and do it as we go. Okay, so just, as I say, mix that through as best you can, but we'll have to wait a while to be able to work with it properly. So it's mixed together quite well, but once we can, we're going to get our hands in there and give it a good squish. Okay, so let's maybe leave it for just 2 or 3 minutes until that's cool enough to work with. Right, that feels okay to the touch now. So just going to lightly flour the surface, and we're going to knead it for a few minutes. Knead/squish. Just a bit of squishing is all it needs. And then we're going to actually leave it for an hour to prove, so that the tacos will rise really nicely. Okay, so this will be quite delicate at this stage because obviously it's not been mixed completely. So just be gentle, and you have to just keep reflouring. It's good if you've had a bad day, you can take it out on the dough. Always a great way to get the tension out. Okay, so I've been kneading that for a couple of minutes now, and really, so it's well mixed. We kind of would have activated everything within it to get started. So what we're going to do is pop it back into the bowl. As I say, leave it for an hour before we actually make the tacos. Now, a lot of people will advise that you would want to oil the bottle that you put it in and oil maybe some cling film to put it over. I just hate using cling film. I think it's such an unnecessary, non-recyclable plastic. So you can instead, if you just wet a tea towel, dampen a tea towel and put it over the top, it's really just to stop the dough from drying out while it's sat in the bowl. Or to be honest, sometimes I've just left it and it's been fine. So don't need to get too fussy about that. But we'll leave that for an hour, and then we'll come back and make all of our fillings for the tacos and get the tacos on in the pan. Right, now while the dough for our tacos is resting, we're going to make up all the bits and pieces that we're going to have to go in the tacos. Now this is where you can get really creative because there's no end to what you can put in tacos. I think, you can see it on restaurant menus, street food menus these days. You can really go crazy with it. I'm going to show you how to make a really fun battered cauliflower as the main kind of meat of it. And then we're going to make a few different types of sides that all have a different flavor profile so that each bite that we have of the taco is a bit different and we can layer them up in different ways. As I say, this is really where you can bring your own flair and your own taste to the dish. Our main of cauliflower, which is going to be smoky and battered. We're going to do a very basic tomato salsa. It's a really nice fresh burst through the dish. We're going to make a flavored mayonnaise with chipotle paste, and that's quite hot, like smoky hot. So I'll give you some alternatives if you don't really like chili. And then we're going to also put some avocado in with it and a couple of other bits when we get that far. So let's start by making our cauliflower. Now, you want to cut down your florets, and they don't need to be too small, but what I would say is if you've got a floret about that size, I would at least cut that in half, if not into quarters. It just means that you get more of the coating around it and it cooks really nice and quickly in the pan. You can see now they're like that kind of size. So I should have said, first thing you really want to do is get your pan on. Now, we're going to be deep frying these in the batter. So, you've got to be really careful with this kind of cooking style if you're going to be deep frying. If you've got a little deep frying machine, then perfect, it'll be safer. If you're doing it in a pan, I'm doing it in quite a shallow pan just to show you so that you can kind of see better on the camera angle. But you probably want, a kind of narrower, taller pan so that there's a bit more space between the top of the pan and the oil. And the oil will be a bit deeper so that when you drop the cauliflower in, it's got enough room to really be in all of the oil. So I've got this on a medium-high heat at the moment. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. We're going to test it when we get the batter ready so we can see how hot it is and how well it's going to cook the cauliflower. But for now, we'll just let it heat up next to you and keep an eye on it while you cut up your cauliflower. And I would say you're going to want like 3 to 4 pieces of cauliflower for each taco. So if you work out, per person, it's probably going to be about 4 tacos, depending on how hungry everybody is. And then work backwards from that for how much cauliflower you need. But this mix I'm showing you could do up to a whole head. So some of them, when you get into the middle, you're just going to want to leave them whole because they're small enough, really, to cook on their own. I always find that last bit in the middle is just made up of such tiny ones. You can pull a couple off, but then maybe just cut the last bit in half while it's all still attached. Okay, so that's our cauliflower all chopped and ready. Now, what we're going to do is actually flavour up the batter. So we've got here the herbs and spices. We've got 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika. We've got a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Half a teaspoon of cumin for that nice sort of deep flavour. And I'm putting in a teaspoon of chili flakes because I am a chili lover. If you're not, you can reduce this or just take it out completely if you don't want the chili in there. And then we're going to use gram flour for the batter because I think it makes a really nice light batter. So I've got 2 spoons of gram flour in here, and we'll just mix all those dry ingredients together. Okay, now the liquid we're going to put into this to make the batter, we're actually going to use sparkling water, soda water. You can use beer. That's a really good way to, just make it like a beer batter, but something fizzy will really make an amazing light batter. So I'm not measuring this, as you can see, but I'm just going to pop a little bit in to begin with and just make it into more of a paste, because that way you'll end up with a smooth batter and you won't have loads of lumps in it. You can see the way it kind of fizzes up with the flour. It's amazing. I'll show you the consistency that we end up getting to. When you make a batter like this, the thicker you leave it, the thicker it will end up on the cauliflower. That sounds obvious, but the more you thin it out with the water, the lighter the batter will be. So it's really down to personal preference as to how you want your batter to end up. You can smell the smoked paprika and the spices in there. It's going to really flavour up the cauliflower nicely. Okay, so for me, that's probably about right. It's quite a runny batter because I'm going to want it quite light on the cauliflower, quite a thin batter. But it's also just thick enough to stick to the cauliflower. So before we do anything, let's just see how our pan is doing, whether it's hot enough. Okay, yeah, so that's just frying straight away. So I would say that is good. Okay, so all we're going to do is toss our cauliflower into it, and then a few at a time, we're going to transfer them into the pan. So you want to make sure that they get completely coated. Those amazing flavours there, just going to really flavour up this cauliflower as it cooks. Okay, so I'm just going to take a small one and pop it in, just see what happens. Oh, amazing. Straight away, it's really frying nicely. It's such a light coating around that floret. We'll let that one finish and then we'll pop a few more in. So then, because we're going to be doing our cauliflower in batches, while that's going, we'll just make some of the other sides that we're having. Okay, so that's just been in for a couple of minutes. And I don't know how well you can see, but it's really crispy on the outside. But that'll be nice and tender inside. So that's exactly how you want them to be. Now, as you're doing these in batches, you might just want the oven on like a really low setting, like between 50 and 100, and you can just be popping these onto a baking tray and keep it in the oven to stay warm and crispy while you get all the rest of it ready to go. So let's pop a few more in and we will make our salsa. I'm going to do some of the bigger ones now. So because my oil's not very deep, I'm just going to have to make sure I turn them halfway through, but hopefully yours will be a bit deeper. Okay, so our cauliflower is all ready. I've got some of it here ready to go. And so we're going to make our salsa now to go into it. So we've got fresh coriander, tomato and spring onion. They are the 3 basic ingredients I always use to make a salsa. And for this one, I'm also going to add in lime juice because it's going to go really well with all the other flavours. So just literally going to fine chop everything and mix it together. And again, you can play around with this recipe. It's really great if you want to pop some fresh mint in with it as well, or some garlic or some chilli. You can make your salsa as fine or as chunky as you like. I quite like big pieces in my salsa because I like getting a big chunk of spring onion or tomato, so I'm going to leave it quite chunky. So the way to work out how much to do ingredients wise is per person you want a tomato, per person a spring onion, and I'd say like a small little palmful of coriander. Okay, so let's pop those in, and then we're going to squeeze in the whole lime, so it'll be really juicy, and that'll be our salsa made. Just give your lime a bit of a roll on the surface to loosen up all the juice inside. Make it a lot easier to squeeze. Oh, it's fresh smell of lime. Usually means it's margarita time. So definitely my drink recommendation with the tacos, especially this kind of flavour combo. To whip yourself up a couple of margaritas. It'd be like you're out at your favourite restaurant. So let's mix those up. And that's our gorgeous fresh tomato salsa ready to go. Now to make our chipotle mayo, we literally got a tablespoon, a nice big tablespoon of mayo and a teaspoon of the chipotle paste. It's quite strong. Now, as I say, this is quite, it's quite hot. It's smoky and sweet as well, but it's got a kick to it. So if you don't like, chili, then you can do a different flavoured mayo. You could do one with garlic, or I really like doing one with mango chutney, same measurements. Mango chutney with this like fruity element. It's really nice. Just mix that together and that's ready to go. Very easy. And I'm also going to add into mine, I've got some jalapenos because of my chili obsession, and I've got some pomegranate seeds, and I think these are just amazing because they look great on it, but they also add every now and then that little burst of flavour. If you haven't got pomegranate seeds or you can't get hold of them, you could do the same by chopping up some pineapple really fine and sprinkling pineapple over the top of it. Chipotle mayo and the smokiness of the cauliflower with pineapple would be amazing. And then I'm going to just mash an avocado. I'm not going to make it into a guac because I think the flavour of the guac, the flavour of the salsa, they'll just end up being similar. So we'll just keep it really plain and simple, and it'll be a nice creamy base to the tacos. That is such a nice avocado. I thought it was going to be a little bit too far gone, but actually it's really perfect, and it's really nice white and creamy. So what I do to mash avocados is I do it in the skin. I think if you take it out and put it in a bowl, you can end up like chasing it around the bowl as you're trying to mash it. If you just hold it in your hand and mash towards you and keep turning it around and keep mashing into the middle, it turns into this amazing like creamy mashed avocado in its own skin. And you can pop it out onto a bowl, or even just pop it on the table like that. Just leave it in its skin mashed, and as you've taken that top layer, you scooped it out, you can mash the next bit down. It's quite lovely just on its own. So now that all our fillings are ready, all that's left to do is to make our tacos. So our dough has been proving for an hour now, so that's ready to use. So here it is. I didn't have mine covered. As I said, sometimes I don't. So one side's a little bit drier than the other, but it's absolutely fine once we start to mix it all in. First thing we're going to do, we want to flour our surface. Just sprinkle a little bit all over, and I always just leave a little pile to the side because you want to keep coming back to it and flouring it more. So just pop your dough down, give it a coating on both sides, and then just work it all back together again with a little light knead. And I've started to heat my pans as well while I'm doing this. So I've actually done two because you roll one out quicker than it cooks, so you can end up with them all piling up. So if you have got space to put a couple of pans on, just speeds the process up a little bit. See, that's really nice now, like stringy, tough dough. It's going to be really like stretchy as we use it. So this should make 12 small tacos. Ideally what you would do now is cut it up into bright portions. I'm just going to pull a bit off for about the right size because I made them quite a lot. So you'll end up with a piece about that size. And we're just going to roll that out really nice and thin and pop it into our pan. So let's flour the surface again. The pans are dry, there's no oil in the pans. Push it down on one side and then the other. That's just going to make sure both sides are coated and it won't stick too badly to the rolling pin. Pop a bit of flour onto your rolling pin as well. And you just want to go all the way to the edge and then flip it over and do it again. So each time you're turning it from lengthways to sideways, but you're also flipping it over. Doesn't matter if it's not a perfect circle, it will still taste the same. Some very odd shaped tacos that still are amazing. And as I said earlier, you can make these much bigger, so they're more like wraps. You can make them, store them, you can freeze them. You can really enjoy these for a long time. So it's actually quite a big one, it's quite a big guess. And it just goes straight into the pan, and we'll see that will just start, the air will start to rise in it and it will bubble up. They only need a minute on each side. We'll turn it over. So now we have a gorgeous big stack of these fluffy tortillas ready to build up our tacos. As I say, it makes 12. I actually managed to make 12, even though I guessed the amounts. That's the first time that's happened. And they're all different shapes and sizes. They don't have to be perfect. That's not what it's about. It's nice, just rustic. They're going to taste absolutely amazing. So I'm going to make one up just to show you how I would layer it up. But as I've already said, this is where personal preference comes in. And you can just change up these sides, really play with the flavors. We've done it obviously with the cauliflower today, but the main meatiness of the taco, you could use mushrooms, you could do them with sweet potato or even like a plant-based chicken or something. So many different ways you can fill your tacos, just whatever mood you're in. So I thoroughly recommend starting Taco Tuesdays, which will give you the opportunity to make these once a week and really play around with the flavors, especially through the summer. It's just absolutely amazing. So, nice warm taco going down, and the first thing I'm going to do is put down a layer of this amazing creamy avocado. It's just plain avocado all the way down the middle. And that really brings that sort of a nice like base creaminess to the dish. Then I'm going to pop on some of this fresh zingy salsa that's got the lime in it. Spread that along. Wonderful. And then a few pieces of our meaty battered cauliflower. As I say, it's usually like 3 or 4 pieces depending on their size to fill the taco. There we go, 3 pieces, gorgeous. And I'm going to top each of them with a little bit of this Chipotle mayo. It's got that smoky, chili flavour to it. It's really going to punch through. Okay, so that's some of that. I blooming love jalapenos, so I'm going to pop about 4 jalapenos along there, so I get a bit in every bite. And then a few of these pomegranate seeds, just for a burst of fresh fruitiness at the end. And that is one taco ready to enjoy. Literally will go everywhere when you eat it. Ideally, you want it to run all the way down your arm, drip onto your lap, all the bits fall out, and then you just get messier and messier as you go, and it's all part of the fun. The way I love to have these is you have everything out in the middle of the table, and you can just pick and choose what you want for each taco. Alternatively, you could load up each plate and serve them. They're great as a little appetizer, great for party food, but just as a a group of friends or family sat around a table with all these different fillings. It's such a fun meal to make and really healthy too. So give them a go. I'd love to hear how you change them up for different flavors. I'd love to hear your ideas. And if you've got any questions about how to make them, then please just let me know.